The night she tried to make her ex jealous, she accidentally caught the eye of the most feared man in the city. One dance. One lie. One moment that changed everything. She thought he was just a stranger in a suit until he whispered her name. A name she'd never told him. The bar was a haze of smoke and murmured conversations, the kind of place where dreams went to die quietly. Emily sat in the corner booth, her fingers nervously circling the rim of her half-empty wine glass. She didn't belong here anymore, but she had come anyway, because her ex, Jake, had chosen this bar to show off his new girlfriend. From where she sat, she could see them laughing at the counter, his arm casually draped around the blonde's waist. Every laugh felt like a knife twisting deeper into her pride. She told herself she wouldn't look, that she didn't care, but the ache in her chest said otherwise. She just wanted him to see she was fine without him, even if she wasn't. As the minutes crawled by, she noticed a man sitting alone in the middle of the room. He was impossible to ignore. Tall, broad shoulders framed by a perfectly tailored black suit, his hair slicked back in a way that suggested precision rather than vanity. The dim lights carved soft shadows across his sharp jawline. He wasn't drinking, just observing the room with a quiet authority that made people instinctively lower their voices when they passed his table. There was something magnetic about him, something that pulled her gaze even when she tried not to stare. Her eyes darted to Jake again. He had caught sight of her now, smirking like he'd already won. The blonde leaned in and whispered something, and both of them laughed. Emily's stomach turned. She couldn't let him have the satisfaction of thinking she was still broken. Her pulse quickened as she made a reckless decision that even she couldn't explain. She stood, straightened her simple black dress, and walked toward the stranger. Each step felt like stepping off a cliff. The bar seemed to fade, until all she could hear was the sound of her heels clicking against the wooden floor. The man looked up as she approached, his expression unreadable but his gaze sharp and assessing. She swallowed hard, forcing a smile. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Could you dance with me? My ex is watching, and I just need him to think I've moved on." For a moment, he said nothing. Then a faint smile touched his lips, and he rose smoothly from his chair. "If that's what you need," he said, his voice low and calm. He extended his hand. The touch of his fingers sent an unexpected warmth up her arm. As they moved onto the dance floor, the bar seemed to still. The chatter dulled, replaced by the soft croon of an old jazz song. Emily's breath caught when his arm slid around her waist, firm but respectful. "You're trembling," he murmured, guiding her with effortless grace. She gave a nervous laugh. "I didn't plan this, I just needed a little dignity back." His gaze softened slightly. "Then let's give him something to watch." For the first time in months, she felt seen, not pitied, not judged, just seen. She looked into his eyes and felt something dangerous stirring beneath the surface. And somewhere across the room, Jake's smirk had finally disappeared. As the song played, Emily let herself fall into the rhythm of his movements. It was like the rest of the bar had vanished, the smoke, the laughter, the humiliation. All that remained was the quiet strength of the stranger holding her, his hand steady on her back, his gaze fixed on hers. The way he moved wasn't just graceful, it was commanding, every motion deliberate and sure. She could feel the power beneath his calm exterior, the danger wrapped in elegance. When she dared a glance toward the bar, Jake was frozen mid-sip, watching them with disbelief. The satisfaction that bloomed inside her was unfamiliar but intoxicating. For the first time since the breakup, she wasn't the one feeling small. She tilted her head back slightly to meet the stranger's eyes, and for a moment she forgot why she'd asked him to dance in the first place. There was something magnetic in the way he looked at her. Not with pity, but with curiosity. Like she was a puzzle he couldn't quite figure out. The song slowed, the notes lingering like a secret. Emily realized her heart was pounding so hard she could barely breathe. "Thank you," she whispered, not sure what else to say. His lips curved into a faint smile. "You thanked me too soon," he replied. His voice had a smoothness to it, deep, calm, but carrying a quiet warning. She frowned slightly, confused, but before she could ask what he meant, she heard someone whisper near the counter. The sound was faint, but sharp enough to catch. "That's him," the bartender muttered to a customer, his tone hushed. "That's Luca Romano." The name sent a ripple through the room. People who had been pretending not to watch suddenly looked away. The air felt heavier, charged. Emily felt her stomach twist as she looked back at him. "Who?" she asked, her voice barely audible. He studied her for a second, the shadow of amusement crossing his face. "You don't know?" She shook her head. He leaned in slightly, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "You just asked the most dangerous man in this city to dance." The words hit her like cold water. Her pulse quickened, panic creeping in. She instinctively took a step back, but his hand tightened slightly around hers, not harshly, but enough to remind her that he was still in control. "Relax," he said softly. "I don't bite." Emily's breath trembled as she tried to steady herself. "Why would you even say yes?" she whispered. He smirked, his eyes glinting with something unreadable. "Because no one's ever had the nerve to ask me before." Her mind raced. Around them, people were pretending to go back to their drinks, but the tension hung thick in the air. "Should I be afraid of you?" she asked quietly. He paused, then tilted his head slightly. "Not tonight." And with that, he released her hand and stepped away, his movements smooth and deliberate. As he walked back to his table, the room seemed to breathe again, conversations cautiously resuming, but Emily couldn't move. Her heart was still hammering, her mind spinning. She turned toward the bar. Jake was pale, his smugness replaced by visible fear. For once, he didn't look like the man who had broken her. He looked like someone who'd seen a ghost. Emily glanced back at the stranger, at Luca Romano, now seated again, sipping a drink that had somehow appeared before him. He looked calm, detached, as if their dance hadn't just changed the temperature of the entire room. As she made her way back to her booth, she felt the weight of his gaze follow her. It wasn't threatening, but it wasn't casual either. It was a promise, or maybe a warning. And when she sat down, clutching her glass to hide the tremor in her hands, she realized her simple plan to make her ex jealous had just pulled her into a world far darker and far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. She had danced with the devil himself, and part of her wasn't sure she wanted to forget how it felt.